Hello, Love Bay. Welcome to the Mental Health Hour. I am Dr. Tapo here in Ontario, which might as well be the North Pole. It is so cold. We had so much snow over the last few days. Like when I went outside, it was up to my knees. Imagine living in these conditions. That's why somebody needs to buy me a flight to, I don't know, the Caribbean somewhere, Barbados, Bahamas, Jamaica, your choice. I'm really happy to be here today to take this time to talk about mental health. Today we're going back to our topic on addiction. If you recall, we had started this topic before the holidays, before Christmas and the festive season. So now we're circling back to the topic of addiction. So I hope you brought your questions, you brought your comments, and you're ready to really engage with this topic, really dive into this topic on addiction. And particularly today, we're starting on alcohol as a coping mechanism. So, alcohol as a coping mechanism. The last two sessions, we spoke about measuring your mental health. We spoke about things that make you vulnerable to mental illness, and addiction kept coming up, right? Addiction kept coming up. So it is a huge, very important topic. It doesn't matter what culture, what gender, what country, what your class, whatever it is, we know that addiction can impact anyone. Anyone. We often stigmatize people that struggle with addiction because we look at them as having no self-control. We look at them as if they're a certain class, maybe they're uneducated and all of that. But we know addiction can touch anyone, that there are many types of addiction. And today we're starting with alcohol as a coping mechanism, because it's a thin line, right? From the time you start saying, oh, I'll just have a drink to wind down, to relax at the end of the day. And before you know it, you can't go to bed without a drink. You wake up in the morning, you need a drink, and it starts to control your decision making, your relationships, your socializing, all of that. So we're going to be spending quite some time on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Today we're starting there. We're going to talk about alcohol dependence. We're going to talk about how even some babies, unfortunately, are born with that dependence on alcohol, because when they were pregnant, their mother who gave birth to them was drinking, right? And so certain babies are born with alcohol dependence, and what that can look like, what that can mean for them. So we're kind of wading into the topic of alcoholism under the general umbrella of addiction. And remember what I said, we're going to look at all sorts of addiction types: pornography, sex addiction, social media, shopping, prescription drugs, street drugs, addiction even to some behaviors, right? Some of us get caught up in the same types of behaviors over and over and over again, which when you look at it, yes, there's no substance involved, but the fact that you keep doing certain things has similar characteristics to addiction, right? So it's not always drugs, it's not always alcohol, it's not always to do with money and gambling and shopping and objects. Sometimes it's actually being almost addicted to certain types of behavior, certain types of relationship drama, right? We're going to spend a long time, maybe all of 2025, we'll just be talking about addiction, because it's such a huge topic that we don't address enough. And I'm not going to say as Black people, because honestly, it's just generally a society, we don't address addiction enough. We don't have enough education and awareness. So when it hits us individually or personally, in our family, somebody we love, maybe somebody we work with, our parents, our children, it feels like it's such a blow to our system because we normally don't know enough about it. So that is my goal for 2025. On Love Day, we are going to talk about addiction. We're going to deconstruct it. We're going to really dive into it. So if it ever touches you, whether through somebody you love and care about, somebody you take care of, somebody who's supposed to take care of you, whatever the circumstance, you will have a firm understanding of addiction and what you can do about it. So before I go any further, 437-778-3299, 437-778-3299 is how you can get in touch. You can text, call, WhatsApp. We're on WhatsApp as well. Country code for Canada is 1. We are not America, but we share the same country code. Don't get confused. We are Canadian. Love Bay is Canadian. Okay, so 437-778-3299 or email infolovebay@gmail.com, infolovbay@gmail.com. Get in touch, share your questions, your comments, your experiences. Let's learn and grow together. Okay, so addiction. Like I said, I started talking about addiction just before the holidays. And if you recall, things you need to know and understand about addiction. What is addiction? Addiction is a type of mental illness. It is diagnosable, so it can fall under that mental illness. It is treatable. Maybe you can't cure a person, but you can treat addiction. And this is why people who go to things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, these kind of addiction groups, they talk about not being cured, but recovering. Why? Because it's always going to have some kind of hold, but it doesn't mean it has to have control. It's there, but it doesn't have to control your life. It is never, ever, ever too late to seek help for addiction. Okay? Addiction is what we call a chronic illness. Chronic illness means it's there. You can treat it, you can recover, your life can be so much better, mend those relationships, be the father, mother, brother, sister, child, lover you always intended to be because now you are in recovery. But we say addiction is chronic because while you may recover with the right treatment, support, lifestyle changes, all of that, it doesn't mean you're cured. You still have to be careful. You still have to be mindful. You still have to take certain steps to keep yourself safe, right? And that's why you find sometimes somebody may say, I was addicted to alcohol, but because of that alcohol addiction, they will also avoid prescription drugs. They will also avoid strip clubs. They will also avoid dating apps because that addictive behavior is still there. And you can become addicted to almost anything, because it's not really about the substance. It's not really about the object. It's not really about, I want to win lotto, or I want to win gambling. It is about what that addiction is trying to fulfill mentally, emotionally, socially. Okay. So addiction is a chronic mental illness. And addiction actually rewires the brain. So research shows us that the brain structure, physical brain, biological brain structure, can actually be altered by addiction. Addiction rewires the brain, it changes the brain structure and function. Because the more you feel that reward, motivation, lack of impulse or impulse control, your brain starts to adjust to that. So addiction rewires the brain. And that's why it is so difficult. If you were listening before the holidays, I said you can try and appeal to somebody's morals. Oh, but from as you're a Christian, you really shouldn't be doing this, or you're married, you really shouldn't be doing this, or you're a parent, you really shouldn't be doing this. You can appeal to their morals any way you can think of. And it's not that they don't see that what they're doing is wrong, harmful, hurtful. It's that they cannot stop. They actually cannot stop without help. Help is critical, crucial to addiction. Because if it was just as simple as someone saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm done. I think I was watching something for just a few seconds. I can't remember what platform, social media platform. I think it was Kirk Franklin, the gospel singer, and he was on some kind of panel, and he was talking to a group of young men about marriage. And one thing he said to me, which was quite interesting, was a lot of young men, and he didn't say to me, did I say me? Yeah, he was saying. But what he was saying to this group of young men is that a lot of young men think they can run around, be dating, having sex with multiple people, da da da. Then they meet the one and think to themselves, I found it, I found her, I'm locking it down, I'm getting married, this is it. And what they discover was they can't stop the cheating, the multiple partners, those behaviors, because it became part of their lifestyle. For some of them, it was addiction. It was actually addiction. So you might have all these good intentions. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. Me personally, my thing is ice cream. And I can go 3, 4, 5 months maybe without touching ice cream. But the day I have like just one little scoop, I'm now going to the grocery store every week. And then somehow, with some support and help and a lot of brain power, I stop again and I can go for months. I can go for months without touching it, without thinking about. But the minute I come into one little scoop, it takes so much effort for me to stop. And I'll be eating ice cream every evening, every evening, every evening. I have to have ice cream, right? And it takes so much to stop. And I know it's not necessarily bad for me, but it's also not good for my health. And the right thing is to moderate, but it's hard, right? So imagine some of these more harmful behaviors, gambling. People will gamble until they are in debt for hundreds and thousands of dollars. And it's not because they didn't see that it was happening, it's that they couldn't stop. So addiction rewires the brain, which makes it very, very difficult to stop without help. Okay. And it's not just about drugs and alcohol. You can be addicted to behaviors like gambling, gaming, right? Those games you like to play, the video games and VR and all of that. It can be social media. It can be social media. I've actually been around people like every 2 seconds they're picking up their phone and scrolling. If the phone is down, they're tapping their leg, they're getting agitated, and you're seeing the agitation mounting like until they pick up the phone and start scrolling. So even your social media, shopping, food. You can be addicted to behaviors. You can be addicted to substances. You can be addicted to things. You can even be addicted to people, right? Genetics and environment play a critical role in addiction. So, your family history. If you had a parent who struggled with addiction, you are more likely to do so as well, right? So, your family history, it can be trauma as well. Remember, last week we were talking about the things that make you vulnerable to mental illness, and addiction is a type of mental illness. It is a mental illness. And a lot of the same stuff we spoke about last week are the same for addiction. What makes you vulnerable to addiction? Family history, if it runs in the family, genetics, biologically, physiologically, if it runs in the family, you are at increased risk. Trauma could be childhood trauma, it could be more recent trauma as an adult, but trauma also makes you at risk for addiction. Stress, remember I said that stress leads to so many things, and that's why we need to really prioritize stress management. I talked before about people saying things like, oh, I'm just going to have a glass of wine to relax. I've had a really stressful day. Before you know it, you've drank 3 bottles of wine. And this is very real, and it happens. It's very, very real, and it happens. I knew a woman who every day after work walked by the store to buy wine. Not 1 bottle, not 2 bottles, 3 bottles of every day. Now imagine how much alcohol intake that is. And you're thinking, like, how did you even get up in the morning after finishing 3 bottles of wine by yourself every single night? There's something that we call functioning alcoholics, right? These are people who are, and I've met them, some of them in high authoritative positions, and it's nice 9 a.m. and you can smell the whiskey. You can smell it off their breath. They're still getting up, they're coming for meetings, they're achieving great things, but without the alcohol, they crumble because now it is the one driving. So sometimes it takes a long time to get to that, what we call rock bottom, right? Because you're still functioning, you're still doing stuff, you're still going to work, providing for your family, whatever it is. So you think you're okay, but you're not. You're absolutely not. And remember, one of the things about alcohol is even though you're waking up and going to work and doing all this, you are not aware of the damage to your organs, your kidneys, your livers that have to work and overcompensate for the huge amounts, the copious amounts of alcohol that you're consuming. Willpower alone is not enough. Really, really understand this. If you have a loved one that you're wondering, like, but why can't they stop? Why can't they see the damage? Why can't they see the hurt? Why can't they stop? And like I said, some of them are high functioning. You would not think that this person has already had this amount of alcohol and it's only midday, but they have. Willpower alone is not enough. Moral compasses are not enough. Your guilt trips and manipulation and all, none of that will work. A lot of times you need professional help. You need to detox. You need to stay in a place that is safe. There are some people who work as what are called sober companions, in that they help you stay away. Because you might think, okay, I've gone 2 weeks, I haven't touched a drink, I'm good to go. And you start hanging out with your friends again, going to bars or nightclubs or wherever it was that you were drinking before. And before you know it, it's even worse than before, because now there's on top of the need, there's guilt, there's shame, there's all sorts of other emotions that are now attached to your will to quit, but your inability to do so. So willpower is not enough. Recovery is possible. And I want us to remember that as we look at alcohol as a coping mechanism. People who use alcohol to just get through the day, get through the night, get through the drama, get through the trauma. So get in touch, 437-778-3299, 437-778-3299, or email us. We're on WhatsApp. Right now, we're taking comments even on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you're listening. There's a way you can get in touch and talk to us. Okay, so alcohol as a coping mechanism. And the reason I decided to start here is because what you will often find is people have all sorts of excuses for why they drink or why they are drinking, even when it gets to a point when it's clear that this is not healthy anymore. And a lot of times it is used as a coping mechanism. A coping mechanism is some kind of behavior that you apply when you are in stressful, harmful, traumatizing, challenging situations, and you need something to help you cope. And for a lot of people, they use alcohol because alcohol provides temporary relief. When you drink, it does something, you start to feel more relaxed. It can numb your emotions, it can numb the pain, it can numb those feelings of stress. You start to relax and you start to feel like, oh, okay, life isn't so bad. And then you sober up and then you drink again because you're trying to maintain that relaxed feeling. And the thing is, the more you drink, because the body gets used to it, so you have to keep drinking more and more, more and more, because the body adjusts. If you think about it, the first time you had alcohol, probably you had like half a beer of 4.5% alcohol, and you were stumbling and delirious or whatever already with just half of a beer. And now you can drink 10 beers. I've known people that can drink 10 beers and don't bat an eyelid. And so they now have to drink the hard stuff, right? The spirits and that have a high level of alcohol concentration, because they got so used to it, the body adjusts. So you're now drinking more. Maybe not necessarily in terms of more beers, but higher concentrations of alcohol to get that same feeling. So instead of learning how to manage your stress, you just drink. Instead of seeking the therapy you need to deal with the pain or the trauma, you drink. And what you drank 3 months ago might have been enough, but because you've been using this as a coping mechanism, you start to build what we call a tolerance for alcohol. And as your body builds tolerance, you need higher concentrations for the same effect. And that's where things start getting dicey, right? That's where you start losing control, because your body is building a tolerance. You still haven't solved those problems. You haven't confronted those issues. You're trying to use alcohol to cope. So you're drinking more and more. And for it to have the same effect, you drink more and more, and your body continues to build a tolerance until you get to a point where we're talking about addiction. Okay, you can't get through the day anymore. You can't get through Christmas Eve dinner with your family without drinking a lot. You can't get through anything that requires some level of emotional investment or emotional heavy lifting. You need alcohol first. So that's why we need to get the help that we need. We need to learn our stress management techniques. We need our therapy. We need all of these things that stop us from turning to alcohol to be able to cope with something that is difficult or challenging. So it quickly leads to dependence because of that pattern. So the more you drink, the more you build tolerance, the more that dependence builds up in you. When people talk about, oh, we went out partying, and I'm always like, why is it that people cannot enjoy themselves, whether it's at the club, the pub, wherever, without alcohol? Like, if there's no alcohol, then it's not fun. Then it's that in itself is a dependence. The fact that you need alcohol to be able to feel like you're enjoying yourself. Without alcohol, you are not having fun. That is a dependence. That you are depending on alcohol for feelings of joy, feelings of happiness, and without alcohol, you don't feel joyful or happy, you don't feel it's a party. That in itself is a dependence. And the more you attach alcohol consumption to joy, to happiness, to all of this, the more you're going to, again, as a coping mechanism, rely on alcohol for good feelings. And it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be able to enjoy something 100%, laugh, dance, have fun with your friends without alcohol. And if you find you cannot, that you actually depend on alcohol for a good time, there's an issue, you need help. So you develop tolerance, you develop dependence, and it makes it harder and harder to function without it. It makes it harder and harder to feel loving or sexy or amorous, right? People who rely on alcohol to be able to perform in bed, which actually alcohol has the opposite impact, right? So it worsens your mental health issues. That's the other thing. A lot of people self-medicate with alcohol. And if you recall what I said about self-medicating before, self-medicating is when you have a mental illness or a mental condition, and instead of going to your physician, to your therapist for help, you try and medicate yourself with alcohol or drugs, right? You're having a hard time coping with stress. You're having a hard time coping with heartbreak. Maybe you found out that your spouse of 15 years was cheating on you and all of that. And instead of processing it, and it can be through therapy, it can be through other means, instead of processing it, you drink. That is called self-medicating, when you try and medicate your emotions and your mental health with alcohol. And yet what alcohol does is it makes it worse. It can make you feel, like I said, maybe you feel relaxed for that moment or whatever. But what often happens, and this is especially with people that have developed that high tolerance and dependence, alcohol will bring you to a place where you crash, right? You feel relaxed, you feel whatever, and then you crash. So it provides temporary relief, but it often makes feelings of anxiety, depression, other mental health conditions like stress. Alcohol actually makes it worse. It actually makes it worse. Part of the reason, like I said, is because you start to see that, oh, this is what I'm doing. Now you feel guilty, you feel shameful, you feel all sorts of other things. So it makes it worse. But it actually does, like the chemical that is alcohol, or the chemicals rather, work a certain way physiologically, and that can actually make you more anxious, more depressed. So when you try and use alcohol to cope with mental health, it has the opposite impact. It has the opposite impact. So again, seek help. Seek help. Don't try and self-medicate with alcohol. And then it disrupts healthy coping strategies. So where you might have gone to bed, where you might have exercised, where you might have had a healthy conversation or discussion with your friend, spouse, partner, whoever, instead you chose to drink. And what that does is it disrupts those things where you might have handled something in a healthy way. Alcohol can disrupt that. Now you're too drunk to have a healthy conversation. Now you can't go to sleep without alcohol. And I've had lots of clients who will say, I can't sleep if I haven't had a glass of wine or a drink. It helps me sleep. You're supposed to be able to go to sleep without alcohol. But the fact that you have developed this dependence, you can't sleep now without alcohol. And I've had clients who wake up first thing in the morning, the only way they feel they can go through the day, they need a drink. So once you start using alcohol to cope with things, it disrupts healthy patterns in your life. You're no longer using healthy ways to cope. It can damage relationships. I mean, this almost goes without saying, but it damages relationships. And I always highlight that again, when you see somebody you care about, love, and they can't stop drinking, it's not because they don't care about you or love you. It is because they are addicted and they need help to deal with that addiction. So alcohol can impact your relationships. Your loved ones don't understand. And it can be in so many ways. It strains your relationships. First of all, who wants to relate constantly with somebody who is inebriated, who is drunk? You can't have a conversation with them. They're drunk all the time. You can't decide, make decisions together. You can't plan for your future together. They're literally always drunk. So you now feel like, okay, there's no point to this relationship because they're always drunk. So relationships become strained. The other part of it is the more you develop that dependence, like I said, the more of it you need, which means you're spending a lot of money on alcohol. And I don't know how much alcohol costs because I don't drink, but I imagine it's not cheap, especially when you're now buying those hard liquors and spirits and stuff like that, because a beer won't do it anymore, because a bottle of wine won't do it anymore. You now want something more that has a harder punch. You can't just drink one bottle of wine anymore. You need two or three or four more. Let's say the cheapest bottle of wine is $9. So each night, like this woman I gave as an example, each night she was spending $30 to $40 on alcohol. So by the end of the week, how much has she spent in 10 days? $300. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. So that also starts to impact your finances, which also can strain relationships. You're not looking after your dependents, your children, your partner, your spouse. You're not paying your bills. You're not doing the responsible things you're supposed to be doing. The money is going to alcohol. It's not cheap. It is not cheap, right? So It can damage relationships. It can impact your finances. It can even bring in factors like gender based violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence because of drinking. I spoke before about a woman I worked with who used to beat her husband, and he never hit her back, not because he couldn't, but because he would not. He was like, I will not do this. But a lot of times when this happened, when she lashed out at him physically, she was drunk. She drank a lot, and when she drank, she became violent, so that they ended up divorced because of that. So alcohol can impact relationships in like really traumatizing ways when we start talking about domestic violence, intimate partner violence, even child abuse. Some people, when they drink, they become violent. It doesn't matter if it's the cat, the dog, the child, the grandmother, whoever. They become really violent, angry drunks. I worked before with a family, well accomplished family. Like the husband was, I think he was a pilot. The woman worked in a hospital. They had two beautiful children. And the problem was every time this man drank, and he did that a lot, so that at one point he had to take an indefinite leave from work because of alcohol. So now that's impacting his career, which is impacting the family's income. So imagine you go from having an income as a pilot, which is a good income, to nothing, or maybe of a two-income household and now it's reduced to one, all because of alcohol. So when he was drinking, he would get really belligerent, really abusive verbally to his wife, to his kids, and they just couldn't be around him anymore. And they got into a pattern of, like I said, he took an indefinite leave from work because of the drinking. And then now he was coming and going. They would get into these huge, horrible fights. He would leave for 2 months where he's saying, I'm working on myself, and da da da. Then he comes back home feeling like, okay, he's conquered his demons, so to speak. And then it starts again. So now he's coming in and out of the home. So not only is his career and job at risk, his pilot's license, but now he's no longer a stable father to his kids, a stable partner to his wife. He's in and out of the house for months at a time. And obviously, when he leaves to go and try and stay somewhere, at first it was hotels, which became expensive. Then it's with his mother, and his mother is elderly. And it started to impact his whole and extended family because of alcohol. And how did it start? When I had the conversation with him, it started with stress at work, trying to cope with stress at work. And all these things followed, to the extent that one of the children wasn't going to school anymore. And she was like just, I think, 10 or 12 years old. She wasn't going to school anymore. It just disrupted their whole family, their whole lives, financially, emotionally, relationships, everything fell apart because of one person becoming addicted to alcohol. So you might not see the future, but once you get to that point where you're seeing like, okay, I'm now, I those thoughts are now going through my head like I need a drink. I'm always like, even when I'm watching TV or when I hear people talk, the number of times people say I need a drink, and we say it casually, right? We say it so casually. We don't realize that that need that we're expressing might actually be an indication of a big problem that you need to deal with as soon as you realize these days I'm reaching for the bottle way too much. I sit down and the first thing I think is I need a drink. On my way home, I'm thinking I need a drink. When I enter my house, I'm thinking I need a drink. I'm at home, I'm at work, it's 1 o'clock. After lunch, I'm thinking I need a drink. It seems such a small thing. We have normalized saying, I need a drink. What we don't realize is this is how dependence develops. That thought, I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink. You should never get to a point where you need a drink. Drinking should be something you do occasionally. Drinking should be something you do maybe socially. Drinking should be something you do casually. But the moment you start to catch yourself saying, I need a drink, think about it. Think about it. And you might be saying, oh, it's not that deep, like everybody. That's just how we talk. But a lot of people don't realize that there is actually a need of some sort driving their alcohol consumption. And the more you normalize that, and every time that thought comes, I need a drink, you reach for it. I need a drink, you reach for it. Maybe your 2-year-old was in their terrible twos phase. I don't know. They're screaming, they had a tantrum at Walmart, and then your mother phoned you, and all she was doing was criticizing you on the phone. Then maybe your spouse came home and they had their own thing. And while you're all this and you're thinking, I need a drink, right there, right there, stop yourself and understand that the fact that you're in a stressful situation and your immediate thought was, I need a drink, means you are trying to use alcohol as a coping mechanism. And what you actually need to do is think about what's stressing me right now, and can I do something to deal with that stress? So, your stress management techniques. I need a drink. That should be alarm bells, alarm bells. And can I just challenge you, even when your friends, your family, and stuff, I'm not saying lecture them. But have a conversation. How many times a week, a day, does that thought come to mind? I need a drink. And in what types of contexts and situations does that come to you? I need a drink. And how have you responded to that? I need a drink. Do you then reach for the drink? Do you go buy the drink? Do you look for that drink? I need a drink. Let that be alarm bells. When you think it, when you hear somebody you care about say it, have that conversation. Have that conversation. If somebody says to you, I need a drink, oh, why do you need a drink? Explore it with them. Nah, I'm just really stressed. Okay. So this is a stress management issue, and having a drink doesn't solve that. Manage the stress, and then maybe later, yeah, sure, have the drink, but not as a coping mechanism. So that I need a drink, let that be for you. The moment you think that, take a step back. Take a step back. Why do I feel like I need a drink? That feeling of needing alcohol, that feeling, alcohol should never be attached to your feelings. Whether it's joy, sadness, pain, fear, nerves, whatever it is, alcohol should never be attached to your feelings, to your emotions. If you're feeling stressed and need something to help calm you down, have some chamomile tea, have some lavender tea, bring out the old uh, kettle and teapot and whatever, sit down, sip some tea. Because that tea actually has good benefits for you. But when you once you start using alcohol as a coping mechanism, I mean, I've never known somebody who had 8 cups of chamomile tea in a row, but I've known many people who had 8 glasses of whatever alcohol in a row, which is called binge drinking. That is binge drinking, when you drink a huge amount of alcohol in a very short space of time without taking a break. That's binge drinking. I've never known anyone to binge drink tea. I've never known anyone to binge drink water. I've known people who binge drink Coca-Cola, which is an addictive substance, by the way, because yes, you can be addicted to sugar. You can be addicted to soft drinks like Coke, Fanta, whatever it is. That is an addiction as well. The moment you start thinking your emotions are whatever they are, and your first thought is, I need a drink, I need chocolate, I need Coca-Cola, I need Sprite, I need, the moment you start attaching some kind of consumption of something to your feelings, your emotions, it means you're using that thing, that drink, that beverage, that food, that chocolate, that whatever it is. I do that at work sometimes when I've been really like focused in on my work. I'm deep in my work, and then I'm trying to figure out something. Do you know what I start to feel like? I need sugar. And I stand up from my desk and start going around the office looking for candy and stuff like that. And I've told all my friends at work, like, please help me. I'm trying to stop this, because especially over the holidays, right? There's chocolate everywhere. And before you know it, your body has become accustomed to eating huge amounts of sugar. And then when you stop, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I've been going through that since Christmas. I came home from Ireland with my suitcase, had all manners of chocolate, and I was eating chocolate like there's no tomorrow. And then when that chocolate finished, I said to myself, I'm not buying anymore. And I didn't. But it's been hard. It's been really, really challenging. I find myself standing up, wandering the office looking for candy. And usually it's when I'm trying to figure something out, or I'm stressed, or I'm starting to feel tired, and all I want is sugar. And that's not healthy. So we all do some of these behaviors. We whether it's sugar, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cake, ice cream, chips. I've known people that cannot, like, they buy boxes of chips and like just eat chips, like, or crisps, if you want to call them that, depending on where you are in the world. It can be food. Food addiction is a very, very, very real struggle for some people. So we all have to, that I need to eat is different, because like right now I haven't eaten. I had like a protein shake for lunch, and I haven't eaten since, and that was like maybe 4 or 5 hours ago. I'm really hungry right now, so I need to eat something. That makes sense. But if I then, with this feeling of hunger, reach for ice cream, that's not a healthy choice. And is it a need for food, or is it a need for some substance, right? So we need to learn to even understand what drives some of our eating and drinking habits. Stress, trying to forget, even boredom. You're so bored out of your mind, you eat so much, or you drink so much. Something I try and advise some of my clients is, don't buy alcohol and bring it home. At least go out to the pub where you're socializing with other people and you're talking and you're chatting. You're going to drink a lot less, But when you get into the habit, like I said, of that woman, she lived alone, should come home from work with her 3, 4 bottles of wine, snuggle on her couch and proceed to drink until all of that is gone. And then the next day, repeat pattern. So she's not talking to anyone and she's watching TV or whatever. And so she's drinking, 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 drinking. At least if you go out and meet some friends, you're socializing, you're chatting, you're talking, you're going to drink a lot less. But if you find that you've developed this habit, that's something that you can do to kind of help yourself. No more buying alcohol and bringing it home. I'll go out instead. And also because when you buy alcohol at, like here, it's called the LCBO beer store or whatever, it's cheaper than when you go to the bar. So you're going to drink more. But when you go to the pub or the bar, they're selling, I don't know, $12, $15 for a glass of wine, just a glass. You're going to drink a lot less because it costs more, hopefully. So there are certain things you can start to put in place for yourself to kind of limit, especially when you're seeing the early development of these types of dependencies. There are things you can do to nip it in the bud. But for some of us, it's too late for trying some of those little strategies. We now need professional help. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Get the help that you need. Get the help that you need. Okay? Get the help that you need. So we have some questions and comments here that came in. We have a listener in Addis Ababa who says, great topic. Thank you for listening all the way in Addis Ababa. Thank you. It's a great topic indeed. It's a very, very necessary topic. And what I really, really want us all to get from this is it can happen to anyone. We tend to look down on people who are struggling with addiction like we're better, we're superior. No. It starts with just little things that you don't even notice and don't realize. And yes, some people are addicted to alcohol. Some of us are addicted to shopping. We're spending thousands of dollars we don't even have. We're buying things that we have nowhere to even wear them. You're buying expensive clothes to hang in your closet. When you're feeling low or depressed, you go take out those clothes, you're brushing them, you're examining them, maybe you try it on, take it off, put it back in the cupboard, in the closet. For some people, that's not enough anymore. So now you go back, and especially with online shopping, Amazon packages are arriving absolutely every day. Things that are random and you don't use, and your house is becoming like an Amazon warehouse. That's addictive behavior. That's addiction. So I really want us to understand that addiction can be to almost anything. It's about the behavior, not the substance, not the objects, but the behavior itself. And then we have somebody called Roger who's asking, is alcoholism curable? No, it is not curable, but it can be treated. And the difference between that is we say you're cured, and that means that thing has gone away. With alcoholism, it's not that it has gone away, it's that you now have taken back control so that it's no longer controlling you. You now have self control, and that takes help, that takes effort. For some people, they start again and stop and start again and stop many, many times before it sticks. And I mentioned before, that's why Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, sex addictions, these groups will say things like, I'm in recovery, because it's an ongoing journey. So it's not curable, but it can be treated and you can recover. And what recover means is you've taken back control. It is no longer controlling you. You now have control. But that doesn't mean get careless and go back to those behaviors. You still have to watch the friends you hang out with. If you are still thinking like, I've stopped drinking alcohol, but you're still hanging out with Johnny, Harry, and Jonah, whose favorite thing is going to nightclubs and strip clubs and all these places, and we are constantly having to fight temptation, at some point, you will get tired of fighting temptation, you will give in, and you're back to square one. So it's not curable, but it can be treated. There are things you can do with the right support, professional treatment. You can regain control, rebuild your life, and be happy and successful, whatever success means to you, and have a good, healthy life with good, healthy habits, good, healthy relationships. Okay? So we have a first time viewer. Oh, we've moved on to viewers, not just listeners. We now have viewers. Okay. And this person is in Berlin. Thank you, our first time viewer. And thank you to all of our listeners as well. And then somebody is sending a shout out to Sammy, Earl, and Andrew in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are tuned in. Oh, this is Love Bay saying thank you to Sammy, to Earl, to Andrew in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are tuned in. Thank you. Keep listening in. Send your questions, send your comments. 437-778-3299. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, you can share your comments, your thoughts, your questions. As we dive deeper next week, we'll continue on the topic of alcohol. So today we looked at it as a coping mechanism that I need. Watch that in yourself, watch it in your loved ones, and be compassionate as you confront that need for alcohol. Confront it. I'm not saying don't, but do it in a kind, compassionate, understanding way. One of the things we really want to encourage on the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay is positive reinforcements, reaffirmations, confrontations, whatever it is. We're doing it in a kind, compassionate way because we're not trying to judge, condemn, cancel people. We're trying to support, help, and bring healing, bring comfort, bring health to each other. That's what we're doing here on the Mental Health Hour. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. Next week, we're continuing on this topic of alcohol. Today, we're talking about that using alcohol as a coping mechanism. Next week, we're talking about alcohol as an addiction, some of the patterns that we can start to see that, okay, yeah, this is now beyond just that I need. It's gone deeper and we need to do something about this. Thank you for listening to the Mental Health Hour. I'm Dr. Tapo. Tune in, get in touch, even during the week. Maybe you need some time to process and something comes to you next Friday or Saturday. It's okay. You can still email us, you can still text us, you can still comment, and we'll definitely get back to you. Have a wonderful week. Happy Black History Month to those of us celebrating Black History Month, and happy rest of February. Good night.